back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for
keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Thursday, March 14th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So, with that being said, let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So, we're going to talk about some NFC East teams. We'll talk about the Dallas Cowboys and their quiet offseason. That'll be how we start off the show. Then in the second part of the show, we'll talk about something that happened earlier in the week, but I wanted to touch upon it. The Tiki Barber, Saquon Barkley feud, if you want to call it. So we'll get into that. I'll give you my thoughts on it. Then in the third part of the show, I'll talk about a pair of Michaels getting released, Mike Williams and Michael Thomas getting released. Talk about what their futures could be. And then in the final part of the show, I'll talk about the Tennessee Titans and the moves that they've made this offseason. Because I know back when, before free agency started, they were one of the teams that I talked about having a lot of cap space, and they've taken advantage of that a little bit. So I'll get into some of the moves that they've made and what are my expectations for them going into 2024. So with that being said, let's get into the first topic, which is talking about the Dallas Cowboys and their quiet offseason. So I know I did another segment on this on a previous show, but Jerry Jones came out and said that the Cowboys are going to be all in. And, I talked about Dak Prescott and them working on a contract extension with him and all of this stuff. And free agency has begun. Well, most of the guys have been signed already. And the Cowboys really didn't do that much. They actually did make a move yesterday. They signed Eric Kendricks to a one-year contract. And I know I said, I think yesterday, that he was going to sign with the 49ers, but I guess, supposedly he had like a change of heart, and now he's going to sign with the Cowboys. And there's a connection there because Mike Zimmer is the new defensive coordinator, and of course they were together when they were with the Vikings. So that's one of the signings. They also did re-sign their long snapper, but really they just have not done anything. And you look around the NFC and you see, the Eagles are making moves. The Commanders are making moves. Teams in your division are all making moves. The Giants are making moves. And you didn't really do anything. Then you look at, the Packers. They made moves. The Bears have made moves. The Lions haven't really done much either, but, they're, in a position where they don't really have to make a lot of moves. And I guess maybe you could say that about the Cowboys, but right now they lost Tony Pollard. They need to, address the running back situation because they have Deuce Vaughn, who I honestly forgot about because I was thinking of Dowdle. Dowdle was the other running back. But yeah, they also have Deuce Vaughn. But yeah, you lose Tony Pollard. So they got to figure something out there. And, the way the defense played in the playoff game against the Packers, you'd want to add to your defense as well. Now, they do have, I believe, 7 draft picks. So one of the things that the Cowboys do well is they do draft well. You see, they drafted guys like CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott, Micah Parsons. that offensive line that they had for years. The Cowboys do well drafting. But you would think maybe they try to add some more pieces. Now, one of the reasons that could be why the Cowboys really haven't spent is because of their cap space situation. They have just over $2.2 million in cap space and even less in effective cap space after considering signings and projected rookie class. So, when Jerry Jones comes out and says all in, well, how are you supposed to go all in when you have a limited amount of cap space? So you could point to that as to why they really haven't made any significant moves. But you look at some of these teams, restructuring deals and releasing guys, there's ways to, create more cap space. I mean, look at what Patrick Mahomes did. I mean, he restructured his deal to create more cap space for the Chiefs. So, and now you got guys like Dak Prescott that want to get paid, and Micah Parsons and CeeDee Lamb. Well, Dak Prescott's looking for, a $50, $60 million contract, which, listen, Dak's, again, a solid quarterback, but he does not deserve that kind of money. So, that it kind of makes sense why the Cowboys have had this quiet offseason. But again, when you have Jerry Jones coming out and saying they're all in, well, go out and show us. But I don't know. And again, I've said this on previous shows too. The conference is getting better. And I just talked about teams that are making moves. Now, again, I still think it's between Dallas and Philly for the NFC East. But you look at the other divisions as well. I mean, I didn't even mention the NFC West. You got the 49ers, who are still an issue. Of course, they're going to be the best team going into next year in the NFC. The Rams, you figure, are going to be better. The Cardinals are in rebuild mode. The Seahawks, I mean, they have a good roster, but, the quarterback position is a little bit of a question mark. I know they did bring back Geno Smith, but you got to bring back somebody. I mean, they let Drew Lock go to the Giants, so I'm curious to see what happens there. Like I said, the NFC North, that's going to be a really competitive division. The South is going to be better now that you got Kirk Cousins there. The Buccaneers retained all their guys. Now, again, I still think Dallas is still one of the top teams in the NFC, but teams are getting better, and you're kind of just the same. So, I don't know. It's interesting. But, like I said, there's ways to create cap space, and they haven't done that. But I guess they're hoping that, through the draft, that's really where all their acquisitions are going to come from. So, but I don't know. It's going to be, again, the draft is, in the end of April. I think, right, because I said they have 7 draft picks. I know I had that in my notes. So they still have 7 draft picks for 2024, which will be crucial in addressing needs they can't address in free agency. So we'll see what they end up doing. Like I said, I think they should add to their defense because, again, I don't know if it's just effort. I mean, I think it was effort. They just did not show up. But you want to add to that. You want to add to the defense. The running back situation, that's probably something they're going to address in the draft. Maybe another wide receiver. I don't know. I mean, again, we'll see what happens when we get to the draft. But they do have some needs, But of course, they got to figure out the whole situation with Dak Prescott, to pay him, and then you also have again CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons that need to get paid too. So and that's going to take up a lot of your cap if you're paying all 3 of those guys, and they deserve to get paid absolutely. Again, I don't think Dak Prescott deserves a $50, $60 million contract, but I think he deserves of course, to get paid, just not like that. But again, we've seen a lot of overpays. Kirk Cousins getting $100 million guaranteed, and he's coming off of a torn Achilles. I mean, Falcons are taking a big risk, but that's what happens. Quarterbacks get paid. And look at the Giants with Daniel Jones and the contract they gave him. So, we'll see what ends up happening. And I have said this too. If the Cowboys move off of Dak Prescott, what is the alternative going to be? I mean, you still have Trey Lance. So, I mean, I'm not saying that's who they would end up going with. But, he's on the roster. They traded for him. Again, I mean, there's the draft. But, again, I think they're going to figure it out with Dak. But then it's just, what now? How does that affect CeeDee Lamb? How does that affect Micah Parsons? So. But, yeah, I mean, I guess you could point to the cap situation and say, okay, that's why they haven't really spent. But again, when your owner comes out and says, we're all in, well, you haven't shown us anything that indicates that you're all in. But, I mean, we'll see. Again, I expect the Cowboys to be a good team next year, a team that is going to make the playoffs. But after that, I expect them to either be one and done, or you make it to the second round and you lose in the second round. That's what I expect. Again, everybody in the division is making moves. Now, I don't expect the Giants to really contend for anything next year. I love what they've done on the defensive line. Love it. Adding Brian Burns to go along with Dexter Lawrence and Kayvon Thibodeau. I mean, that's as a Giant fan, you got to be excited for that at least, all things considered. The Commanders have made moves, but I still think they got a long way to go. They got to figure out their quarterback situation too. I mean, they still have Sam Howell on their roster. They did sign Marcus Mariota, but you figure they're going to draft a quarterback, and I'm curious to see if Sam Howell ends up going somewhere else. Because in the beginning of the year, I mean, I thought, hey, maybe the Commanders found their quarterback, and then everything just fell apart, and they finished 4-13. Because I think they started off the year 2-0. I mean, yeah, they beat the Cardinals, and the Cardinals were not very good. Even though they were scrappy at times, they beat the Cowboys. And then they had that comeback win against the Broncos in Mile High, when they were down, like, I think it was 21-3. So I mean, that was impressive, and you thought, okay, Commanders, they might have something, and then yeah, everything just fell apart. I mean, they were getting crushed by Dallas on Thanksgiving, and the Dolphins, the Bills earlier in the season. It just, everything kind of fell apart. But yeah, they've made a lot of moves too. But again, I mean, this division is going to come down to Dallas and Philly. That's really who's going to come down to. And I've liked what Philly's done this offseason. I mean, they've addressed the defense. Now, again, we got to see how that translates on the field. But, they got new coordinators, Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio. So I think that's definitely going to help. Bringing in Saquon Barkley to run behind that offensive line. Again, you're going to be missing Jason Kelce. But, I think Saquon should have a good year. If he stays healthy. That's really what the problem with Saquon has been over the course of his career, is him not being able to stay on the field. And now he's going to be running behind the best offensive line that he's ever had. So, I think he should have a good year. And then you bring in Devontae Parker. And Devontae Parker, again, is, it's not a needle mover. But, again, I mean, as your third, fourth wide receiver, I mean, that's not bad, behind A.J. Brown and behind Devontae Smith. So, I like what the Eagles have done. So, again, now they got to go out there and prove it, that, that collapse was a fluke, and that they're going to try to get back to the team that was 10-1 and the team that got to the Super Bowl the year before that. So, but yeah, I got to see what the Cowboys end up doing with the draft. But again, teams are improving, and you're kind of just staying the same. So, we'll see what happens. But it's been a quiet off season for Dallas. I know, like, seeing social media, people are complaining, about Jerry Jones, and once he eventually leaves, and he's not, or he takes a step back, that's really when things will start to change with the Cowboys. But until then, it's going to be the same thing every year. So, but yeah, I mean, like I said, they got decisions to make with their own players. Like I said, they have drafted well in the past, so this is going to be a big draft for them if that's where all the acquisitions are going to come from. So, yeah, we'll just have to keep an eye on it. But yeah, like I said, quiet off season for the Cowboys. So we'll talk about another NFC East team when we come back. I did allude to it when I started out here. But yeah, we're going to talk about the something that happened earlier in the week, of course. Saquon Barkley signing with the Eagles. Tiki Barber had some comments, and then Saquon went back at him on Twitter. We'll get into that. I'll give my opinion on it when we come back from our first break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the news it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh,
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to talk about the Tiki Barber, Saquon Barkley feud, if you want to call it. So, yeah, earlier in the week, well, first of all, let me go back to last week. So, on his radio show, basically he was saying that, if Saquon goes and signs with the Eagles, that he will be dead to him. And that's what ended up happening. So Tiki said, you're dead to me, Saquon. Now, again, you can analyze, like if you go and watch the video on their Instagram page, on WFAN's Instagram page, the radio station here in New York, in case you didn't know that. But again, you should. But yeah, so if you watch it, I mean, he's smiling when he says that. So, I mean, like, was he joking? Yeah, I kind of being serious. But, Saquon took it to Twitter and basically said, that Tiki's always been a hater since the Giants drafted him. And, again, like, I don't know what, I guess they did have a relationship, while Saquon was with the Giants. But I think a lot of people were saying that, again, Saquon said he's always been a hater, but, when I was listening to the radio show, Tiki couldn't recollect, the reason for, him being a hater since Saquon got drafted. So, and really the thing is, the reason for it is just because, not because Saquon got paid, but because Saquon went to the Eagles. And, yeah, there's been this whole debate the last week over it, and, yeah, Saquon went to the Eagles. It's a division rival. And, of course, fans are going to be upset over it. Now, again, for me, as a Giant fan, I'm not devastated over this because right now the Giants are in no position to compete. Again, I like the moves that they have made on the defensive side of the ball. And, you bring in Devin Singletary to replace Saquon. Which, again, Singletary is not the player Saquon is, but at least you brought in someone that's coming off of a good year that could at least step in and provide some stability at that position. But, yeah, the Giants they're not in a position to compete. They're still, there's a big gap between them, Philly, and Dallas. Now, again, the Commanders, the Giants always find a way to beat the Commanders. So I'm not really, it's going to be between them two for, third and fourth place in the division. But yeah, so I was fine with Saquon walking because, you bring him in and you pay him all that money. Well, then you can't go out and trade for Brian Burns. There's just so many other areas that the Giants need to improve in the offensive line, which they've addressed. They've added 2 offensive linemen. You got to figure out the quarterback situation. But now the other debate is the fact that, should they have paid Saquon instead of Daniel Jones? And the answer is, yeah, probably should have. Probably should have. Because as much as Daniel Jones, he kind of took a step forward in 2022, Saquon Barkley was really the engine of that team. And Daniel Jones without Saquon Barkley is not very good. And now, look at the situation the Giants are in now. They got to bring in Drew Lock. They're probably going to have to draft a quarterback. And Daniel Jones tore his ACL, and we don't know when, he's going to come back. I mean, he's going to come back, but it might not be at the start of the season. He has a chance to miss that. So, the Giants are in a messy situation. Again, I like the direction the defense is going in, but the offense, it's a work in progress, and it's been like that for a long time. But I feel like with now back to the Tiki and Saquon stuff, it definitely got blown out of proportion. And the problem is, and this happens a lot with a lot of different things, is you'll see like a snippet of something, and you don't, without any context, and then you just assume. And that's something that is a problem. Now, I think, I think Tiki was kind of joking, but, not really. Because, again, he went to a division rival. But, this just got blown way out of proportion. Way out of proportion. And, again, other things that have come out is, Tiki Barber speaking on this. Well, Tiki Barber had some things to say about Eli Manning, towards the end of his career. And then what happens? Eli Manning goes and wins 2 Super Bowls. That's at least on social media you see that. Tiki shouldn't be saying that. He left early, left the playoff team, and what did the Giants do? They ended up, again, they won the Super Bowl in 2007. And then, I don't think Tiki would have been playing till 2011, but, again, Eli went and won 2 Super Bowls. Because I saw, a clip, I don't know if it was, Peyton Manning, A Football Life or something, but, yeah, he was basically talking about Peyton, Tiki was, and just saying how, what a leader Peyton is, and he just, I don't know, he was saying how Eli isn't on, the same level as Peyton when it comes to that. And there was also that, another thing I saw was, Tiki had Eli, address the locker room, make a speech, and, he was saying Eli things. Because, yeah, when you hear Eli talk in a press conference, and, he stutters a lot and things but that's Eli. And, but listen, again, Eli won 2 Super Bowls. So whatever Eli says to motivate the team, it worked. It worked. But, yeah, so there was that too. But, again, I think it's not that big of a deal. And, again, Saquon shouldn't take it personal. Because, again, you went to a division rival. Now, again, when he comes and plays at MetLife Stadium, he's going to get booed. Absolutely, he's going to get booed. But that's only because he went to a division rival. So I understand that. That stings. That really does. But that's what he decided. He was getting paid a lot of money. The Eagles definitely overpaid for him. And especially when he's a guy that's been injured. But, you know what? He adds another dimension to that team. Now, again, they probably could have got one of these other running backs at a cheaper price. And they would have been okay. Because, again, the Eagles have a good offensive line. And they have a lot of playmakers on that side of the ball. With A.J. Brown, with Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts could take the pressure off of the running backs, whoever's running the ball, because he could also take off and run with it as well. So, whatever the Eagles decide to do at the running back position, I think they would have, I shouldn't say whatever they decided to do, but, the names that were out there, you could have got cheaper, but at least some of them. But, they went and overpaid for Saquon. And listen, Saquon knows the area well. So, again, I don't really blame Saquon. But it just so happens that it's a team in the Giants division, which is why all this, started. But yeah, I mean, it happens in sports. I mean, you see players leave and go to another team. I mean, not that they were rivals, but when LeBron James left Cleveland and went to Miami, and his first game back in Cleveland, I mean, they were booing him constantly when he had the ball in his first game back. I mean, not that they are division rivals, the Heat and the Cavs, but again, LeBron left to go play with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh and comes back to Cleveland and he gets booed. I mean, it happens. This is a division rival. I mean, how many Yankees and Red Sox players have, traded places? Jacoby Ellsbury, signed that big contract with the Yankees back in 2013, which I was not a fan of. And, goes back to Fenway, gets booed. But, again, I mean, those are two different sports. I mean, these are different sports that I'm talking about, but, that's, he's going to get booed when he goes back to MetLife. And this is not the first time the Eagles have done this. I mean, you go back to when DeMarco Murray had that great season in 2014. He was the leading rusher. And then what ended up happening? He signs with the Eagles. So, the Eagles have taken away some running backs. I'm trying to think. Did anybody from Washington go and play for the Eagles, running back wise? I don't think Alfred Morris did. I know Alfred Morris played for the Giants and the Cowboys, but he didn't. I don't think he played for the. He didn't play for the Eagles. I know he didn't play for the Eagles. Yeah, I can't really. I mean, Deshaun Jackson, I guess. Deshaun Jackson went. Well, actually, no. Deshaun Jackson did the reverse. He went from the Eagles to Washington, but then came back to the Eagles. Later in his career, but yeah, I don't think this is that big of a deal. Again, it just gets blown out of proportion because again, we live in a day and age with again, you posted a snippet of what Tiki said. I mean, that's and all these players are mocking him. Patrick Queen went to the Steelers. Lamar Jackson said, "You're dead to me." I think, or did he say it to Geno Stone? That was another signing I actually didn't mention. Geno Stone, one of the guys in the Ravens secondary. He went to the Bengals. It was one of the two. They went to division rivals. Geno Stone went to the Bengals, and Patrick Queen went to the Steelers. But regardless, yeah, Lamar Jackson said it jokingly. That's really just been like on a lot of posts is "You're dead to me." It's just mocking what Tiki said. But again, I don't really think it's I don't think it's that big of a deal. And yeah, I mean, even Tiki said it's just the fact that he went to the Eagles. That's why. It has nothing to do with Saquon getting paid. That's what people want. You want to see Saquon get paid. He deserves it. As much as again, he's missed a lot of time with injuries. He's a really good running back. But again, you went to a division rival. That's the problem. And that's it. And again, life goes on. Next year, Saquon's going to play twice against the Eagles. I thought it was funny, too, listening to the Michael Kay show and or watching the Michael Kay show. And, a fan calls in and just says, how are we going to watch the games next year? Saquon gave the Giants his all. The Eagles are going to come in and they're going to, smack the Giants around. And Don LaGreca's like, the Eagles were smacking the Giants around when they had Saquon. Now, again, they were competitive. Now, they smacked the Eagles around the final game of the regular season, and they almost came back against them on Christmas. But for the most part, lately, the Eagles have been the team. The Eagles and the Cowboys really have just, outclassed the Giants in a lot of ways. I mean, look at the Cowboys. Both games the Giants played against the Cowboys. 40-0, and what was it, like 49-17 the second game was? It's been like that for so long. The Giants have not won a game in Philadelphia since 2013. When they went to play them in the playoffs 2 years ago, I didn't think they were going to win. Or last year, I guess. I didn't think they were going to win. Because they have not won in that building since I was in middle school. But yeah, again, that's why letting Saquon go was not the worst thing in the world. because you can address other areas. And you brought in another running back. Again, Singletary's not as good as Saquon, but again, provide some stability there. So, but let me know what you guys think about the whole Tiki Barber, Saquon Barkley feud. Is it really that big of a deal? Again, I don't think it really is, but let me know in the comments. So before we go into our next break, just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is GSMCpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is GSMCpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So with that being said, we are going to take our second break of the show. And then when we come back, we will talk about the future of a couple of Michaels, Michael Thomas and Mike Williams. We'll talk about them, both of them getting released. And that is what we will discuss when we come back from our second break of the show. So with that being said, stick around and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are now going to talk about the future of Mike Williams and Michael Thomas. So both guys were released. Mike Williams was released by the Chargers. Michael Thomas was released by the Saints. And Michael Thomas, I mean, you go back. So I want to pull up their career stats. So, I again haven't really used a graphic lately, but we're going to do that today. So let me just make sure I have the right one up. Nope, that's Mike Williams. We want Michael Thomas. There we go. So Michael Thomas, again, this is his Pro Football Reference page. I mean, you go back to 2018 and 2019. I mean, phenomenal seasons. Led the NFL in receptions both of those years. And you got to remember, 2019, Drew Brees got hurt. That was back in, they played the Rams earlier in the season, and that was when Drew Brees hit his hand on, I think on Aaron Donald's helmet, and that led to a thumb injury, and he was out, so Teddy Bridgewater stepped in. But that didn't affect Michael Thomas. He still, he still kept playing really well. He was playing really well, regardless of who was playing quarterback at the time. Finished both seasons with 9 touchdowns. I mean, look at the receiving yards. 1,400 yards receiving, 1,700 yards receiving. In 2019. And even look at 2016 and 2017. 9 touchdowns in 2016, 5 in 2017. I mean, he was great, those first 4 years. But then 2020 was plagued by injuries, did not play a single game in 2021. Played in 13. Played in 10 games in 20. I was looking at his number. Played in 10 games in 2023, but he only played in 3 in 2022. And he actually did get off to a good start in 2022, but again, got hurt. And that's been his problem, is injuries. So I don't really know if I think another team may pick him up, but the Michael Thomas that we saw back in 2016, 17, 18, 19, he's no longer that player, unfortunately. And that, again, he made a couple of plays, the last 2 seasons, but again, injuries affected him. You could see the talent's still there. It's just keeps getting hurt. So, and then I wanted to pull up. I also have Mike Williams stats up, so I just want to pull them up as well. So yeah, Mike Williams, again, he's another receiver. Again, a little. Not that much younger than Michael Thomas, but unfortunately, actually he got off to a good start, but he ended up unfortunately tearing his ACL. The Chargers definitely missed him. after he got hurt, but they ended up releasing him. 2019 was a good season for him. He had 1,000 yards, 1,001 yards. 2 touchdowns. The season before that, he had 10 touchdowns in 2018. And this is back with Phillip Rivers and with Justin Herbert. 2021 had 1,100 yards, receiving 9 touchdowns, and that was in 16 games. And then in 2022, he missed a couple of games, but he had 895 yards receiving and 4 touchdowns. And yeah, again, looked like he was going to have a good season, but in 2023. But again, unfortunately, tore his ACL. But also, actually, let's not forget the final game of the regular season. He ended up getting hurt against the Broncos. Brandon Staley left him in, and then and then he ended up missing the playoff game against the Jaguars. So that was not a good move by Brandon Staley. But yeah, I mean that's that was one of Justin Herbert's main weapons, and now he's going to be looking for a new team, and we'll see where he ends up. So with Mike Williams, so he was due to count $32.46 million against the cap in 2024. This was in the final year of his 3-year deal. 3-year, $60 million contract signed in 2022. This saves the Chargers $20 million on the salary cap. Again, the Chargers have, their cap situation is a mess. I think they are going to keep Khalil Mack because I know, there's Keenan Allen, there's Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, a lot of the big names that, could be finding new homes, but it seems like they're going to stick with Khalil Mack, and they're probably, I think they're going to stick with Keenan Allen. I mean, again, if you get rid of Keenan Allen, I mean, those are all Justin Herbert's weapons. I mean, Austin Eckler's no longer there now. You release Mike Williams. So I think Keenan Allen's probably safe. Because, I mean, you got to keep some guys. So I think they'll figure it out. But at least Mike Williams, he's going to be finding a new home. And you see it here on the Pro Football Reference page. He played a full season only once in 7 years with the Chargers. He led the NFL with 15.8 yards per reception since 2018. So we'll see what ends up happening. I mean, I guess he's going to get like a short-term deal. But listen, whoever gets him, if he, stays healthy, you're getting a good wide receiver. And the same thing, I mean, Michael Thomas, again, he's dealt with they've both been injured. But Michael Thomas missed a full season. I mean, Mike Williams basically missed a full one in 2023. He played in 3 games, but these guys are probably going to be looking for short-term contracts. But yeah, so with Michael Thomas now, he's designated as a post-June 1st release, saving $1.2 million against the cap. He finished the season on injured reserve with a knee injury. It just, again, he was one of the best receivers in the NFL, but again, injuries really just caught up to him. So again, it's going to be interesting to see, what teams are interested, because I think they will generate some interest. If a team is really desperate for a wide receiver, I think Mike Williams is going to generate more interest, but again, only time will tell with these guys. I don't know what you guys may think. Teams that could possibly go after these two. I mean, again, Mike Williams, I could see him going to the Chiefs. I mean, why not? Why not? The Chiefs need a receiver. He's a big wide receiver. Stays in the division. I feel like that makes sense, right? Maybe the Bills as well. The Bills could maybe use another receiver after Gabe Davis left. Maybe if they could get one of these guys for cheap, if they end up losing Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins, if they end up trading T. Higgins, maybe they go that route. Because Tyler Boyd is still unsigned at this very moment. I want to just double check. Actually, one thing that I did fail to mention, I did see this when I checked Instagram. So the Lions extended Dan Campbell. I don't know what the specifics are, but I just see the NFL Instagram posted that the Lions are extending him. So I'm really happy for that. Big Dan Campbell guy. in case you didn't know that. Really just, again, all goes back to his press conference, of course. So I was happy to see that. But back to what I was saying before. So yeah, the Bengals, they got to pay Jamar Chase, and they might end up losing T. Higgins if they have to trade him, and Tyler Boyd. But I don't think. Let me see. I don't think Tyler Boyd wasn't signed yet. Yeah, he's still a free agent. So this was 17 hours ago. Again, I don't know how legit this is, but the Steelers and wide receiver Tyler Boyd have mutual interest and have had a dialogue about him returning to his hometown. Okay. Biggest hurdle in Tyler Boyd is to Steelers conversation are the Chiefs and dark horse being the Jets. Now again, this is from Mark Caboli. That's just speculation. But no, I see Steelers, Chiefs, Jets. Oh, okay. All right, so, we'll see what happens. I mean, I think wherever Tyler Boyd ends up, I mean, if he goes to the Chiefs, that would be a good spot for him. I mean, the Steelers, we got to see now because they traded Deontay Johnson. They let go of Allen Robinson. So, yeah, the wide receiver room's kind of a little thin. Now, you expect them to kind of address this, in the draft because the Steelers do love to draft wide receivers. So I feel like you're going to see them draft a receiver. Again, the Chiefs, that could be a team that, maybe pick some of these guys up. I mean, depends on how much they want. Mike Williams, again, I think you could get him, for cheap, especially because he's coming off of an injury. But I don't know who would be interested in Michael Thomas. Again, I mean, both guys are coming off of injuries. But again, I just feel like Mike Williams is going to generate more interest. Let's see. Let's see if there's any rumors out there. Let's see. I see an article that says potential landing spots include Broncos and. Oh yeah, that's true. The Broncos with Sean Payton. Yeah, I did see that. I did see people saying that on social media. I could see it. I could definitely see that. The Giants. I mean, listen. The Giants wide receiver room. The way it is, I mean, again, I'd be okay with it. But even though, who knows how much he's going to play, but I could definitely see the Broncos. But the Broncos they got to figure out their quarterback situation. They're not going to go into next year with Jared Stidham as their quarterback. So, and I mean, we've seen Sean Payton bring in some of his guys. I mean, Adam Troutman and Lil Jordan Humphrey. So, I could see Michael Thomas, making his way to the Mile High City. So, we'll keep an eye on it. But again, these are guys coming off of injuries, and that's the one downside. And like I said, Michael Thomas. I mean, he made plays, the last couple of seasons, but again, injuries hurt him. And if injuries didn't derail his career, what would happen? I mean, this really all started, Drew Brees' last season, because he was injured pretty much the whole year. Then he came back for the playoffs, but really wasn't a factor. Then he missed all of 2021. Then he came back for, a couple games in the beginning of the year, was hurt. And then he got hurt again in 2023. So, and I mean, again, was putting up impressive numbers with Drew Brees. And then, again, injuries, unfortunately, have derailed his career. So, again, we'll see where he can end up. Again, the Broncos, that definitely is a possibility just because, again, Sean Payton's there, Mike Williams, we'll see. We'll see. So, let me know what you guys think. Who would be a good fit for both of these guys? Do you think they're going to generate interest? I mean, I think they are, but who do you think would be a good fit for both of the Michaels here? So we're going to take our final break of the show. When we come back, I do want to talk about the Tennessee Titans. One move that they made I want to talk about, and that's, of course, Calvin Ridley signing with them. So I kind of wanted to get into all of their signings that they've made and where, they kind of fit in the AFC South. So that is what we are going to do when we come back from our final break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, I just wanted to touch upon the Titans offseason and what they've been able to do. I know in the top of the show, we talked about a team that really hasn't done much. But the Titans are another team that has, made some signings. So I wanted to touch upon that. So most recently, this was the big one. So they signed Calvin Ridley to a 4-year, $92 million contract with $50 million guaranteed. So you pair him up with DeAndre Hopkins. They also signed Tony Pollard to replace Derrick Henry. They signed Lloyd Cushenberry from the Broncos, the center. They signed him to a 4-year deal worth $50 million with $26 million guaranteed. They also did sign Mason Rudolph to be the backup to Will Levis. So he is not returning to Pittsburgh. They re-signed Nick Folk to a 1-year deal. Their kicker, they brought in Kenneth Murray Jr. from the Chargers on a 1-year deal. Linebacker, $18 million. They brought in Awuzie, the cornerback. I can't say his first name, but you know who I'm talking about. Awuzie, the cornerback. He agreed to a 3-year deal worth $25.5 million with $17.5 million guaranteed. Morgan Cox, their long snapper, another long snapper, got re-signed. And they also signed a guard as well. But the big moves are on the offensive side of the ball. So you bring in Ridley, you bring in Pollard, a center, and Cushenberry. Cushenberry started 57 out of 65 games for the Broncos, allowing only 2 sacks in the last 2 seasons. So that's good. That's good, and you want to protect your young quarterback. And they have surrounded him with weapons. You bring in Ridley, you got DeAndre Hopkins there. Tony Pollard now you bring in to pair him with Tajay Spears. And you also have some other receivers as well. I think they still have Westbrook Akine and, of course, Treylon Burks, who they drafted to replace A.J. Brown. Now, that's the one thing that I wanted to talk about. Well, one of the other things I wanted to talk about was the fact that the Titans screwed up. They know that they screwed up because they traded A.J. Brown because they didn't want to pay him. They drafted Treylon Burks, and that hasn't really worked out so far. So now they go out and they trade for they sign Calvin Ridley to that contract, and a lot of people are saying he got overpaid. So yeah, 4 years, $92 million, $50 million guaranteed. And Calvin Ridley's an older receiver, So the Titans realized that they kind of screwed up. And people lost their jobs because of them trading A.J. Brown. So yeah, Calvin Ridley's 29. DeAndre Hopkins is 31. And I think A.J. Brown is what, 27, 28? I think. Let me just do a quick check. Oh, no, not even that. He's 26. Yeah, so you sign an older receiver to that big of a contract. And listen, Ridley I think had over 1,000 yards receiving with the Jags. He was inconsistent, And, I know I was talking about, my friends were talking about it in our sports chat yesterday, some of them saying Ridley lost his step. Well, yeah, the other thing, too, is didn't play for almost 2 years. So, yeah, of course it may look like he lost a step. But I think, for a guy that really didn't play for a long time, the fact that he got over 1,000 yards is incredible, I think. Now, again, he's going to be a year older. So we'll see. I mean, again, and it was funny seeing on social media, this receiver core would be great if it was 3 years ago. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins, I thought was okay, with Will Levis. I mean, of course, in his debut, Will Levis's debut, he had 3 touchdowns. But again, he's not the same DeAndre Hopkins that he once was. I mean, Ridley, again, he's getting older. So, Tony Pollard had over 1,000 yards, but, again, he looked like he lost a step. But I think we got to see, now another year removed from the injury. Let's see, what he is like, what he's like with the Titans now, another year removed from the injury that he suffered in the playoffs against the 49ers. But listen, this is going to be a big year for Will Levis. They've surrounded him. Whether you think the weapons are older or not, I mean, I think what he has around him is serviceable. And we saw flashes. He's got a big arm, but now he's got to go out there and prove it. You got weapons around you. So now again, I think losing Derrick Henry and replacing him with Tony Pollard, obviously, different size running backs. But you know what? If Tony Pollard could be the Tony Pollard that he was in 2022, that is a big pickup for the Titans. And you got Tajay Spears there, who they drafted. So we'll see how that duo works. But yeah, I mean, bringing in Ridley, pairing him with DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, I think they're going to find success. But again, Will Levis has to go out there and prove it. You got a new head coach, an offensive-minded head coach you got from the Bengals in Callahan. So let's see what he can do. I think, you're going to see some improvement. I mean, there has to be. If not, well, then he's clearly not the guy. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that, yeah, Will Levis is definitely the guy. Got to see him go out there and prove it now. And again, got to see what the Titans do in the draft. But again, you add an offensive lineman, you add a receiver, a running back. So, now it's up to Will Levis to go out there and prove it that he is, in fact, the guy. The problem is, as much as I could say, yeah, I kind of like, the offense on paper, I don't really expect the Titans to win a lot of games next year. I'm going to say that because, again, you're playing in a division where the teams ahead of you are better. I still look at Jacksonville as being a team that's better than them, even though they really haven't done that much in the offseason. I mean, they added Gabe Davis to replace Ridley. And listen, they still got Christian Kirk, Zay Jones. I think Evan Ingram, Travis Etienne, of course, Trevor Lawrence comes back and is healthy. I think they're going to be better. And then also, again, look at what the Texans have done. Love what they've done on the defensive side of the ball. They traded for Joe Mixon, added him to the fold. C.J. Stroud now in year 2. The Colts, they were on the doorsteps of making the playoffs with Gardner Minshew as their quarterback. Now Anthony Richardson's coming back for a full season. And actually, speaking of the Colts, they I thought he was done, but nope, he's sticking around. Joe Flacco signed a 1-year deal with the Colts to be their backup quarterback. Which I think that's a good signing just because, again, in case Anthony Richardson gets hurt, you have an experienced backup in Joe Flacco. And look what Flacco was able to do with the Browns. Now, Flacco comes in if he has to. Hopefully he doesn't. But if he has to come in, you have Jonathan Taylor coming out of the backfield. And they got some weapons there. They re-signed Michael Pittman. Josh Downs, their rookie, now he's going to be going into his second year. Flacco's stepping into a good situation. So that's a good insurance policy in case Anthony Richardson, gets hurt. But knock on wood that he doesn't. But yeah, I mean, where does that leave the Titans though? I mean, and again, the AFC is a gauntlet. So, you got a division that's going to be, this division is going to be competitive. But again, I still kind of look at the Titans as that, as the team that could be finishing in last. I look at the Texans right now as the favorites. And you know what? You could even say that there's question marks with Anthony Richardson because he looked good in the limited time that we saw him, but we still got to see what he's all about over the course of a full season, if he plays a full season. So, Jacksonville, I expect them to bounce back, but they have to bounce back. If they don't bounce back, then that's another team that could be a question mark. So. Again, I maybe I'm in the minority, but I kind of like what the Titans did. Again, I don't expect them to be, Super Bowl contenders by any means, or they could, fight for that third wild card spot. But again, it's just so competitive. The conference is just so competitive. They're going to deal with the teams in their division, like I just said. So it's going to be tough. They might be a team that doesn't win a lot of games, but again, their ceiling could be third wild card. So, but I don't know. Listen, now it's really all about the development of Will Levis, because if he goes out there and it doesn't play well, then they don't have their guy. But again, it's just kind of funny how the Titans really just regret trading AJ Brown. Well, they regretted trading him when he scored like 2 or 3 touchdowns against them in 2022 in Philly. They probably regretted it the minute they did trade him. But yeah, when AJ Brown went off against them, that's what you lost, And now you trade you pay Calvin Ridley all that money when you could have gave it to AJ Brown, and AJ Brown is 26. I was saying he was 27, 28. He's 26. So. They kind of screwed up there. But yeah, and then they also brought in DeAndre Hopkins. You could have just kept AJ Brown. But they didn't want to do that. So again, they regret that decision, but now they can't go back on it. Unless they want to, throw all their draft picks at the Eagles and get AJ Brown back, they're not getting him back. They're not getting him back. They kind of had to piece it together. You signed DeAndre Hopkins last offseason. Now you sign, Calvin Ridley. Again, Will Levis has got some weapons, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. But listen, if under the new regime, if he can develop and take a big step forward, the Titans are going to be a competitive team. But if not, this conversation really doesn't matter. So, no matter who they add, ultimately the quarterback's got to step up. But maybe you got Mason Rudolph, so maybe the Titans, they're kind of hovering around 500, and then they Mason Rudolph gets put in, and they win their final 3 games and they make the playoffs, and then they're one and done. So no, I'm just saying that, but. Like I said, it's really all going to come down to the development of Will Levis. So, but listen, they went out and they've surrounded him with weapons. So now he's got to go out there and improve it, and we'll see. And now we'll see what the Titans do in the draft. But yeah, again, this was a team that had a lot of cap space, and they went out and they spent some money. And again, they may have overpaid, but they did go out and spend it. So, but yeah, that was just the big thing was Calvin Ridley signing with the Titans. Again, I think he was inconsistent, but for a guy that hasn't played in a couple of years, I thought he was decent for the Jags. Again, Will Levis has a big arm. You saw some flashes. So let's see, how it works out in Tennessee. But again, they could have just kept AJ Brown, but they didn't want to do that. So now that's why they went out and again got DeAndre Hopkins and got Calvin Ridley. So, But yeah, let me know what you guys think about the Titans offseason. Where do you kind of see them fitting in the AFC South? Again, I kind of look at them still as, unfortunately, the last place team. Again, and there's also the unknowns with, the head coach as well. I mean, you got a new head coach stepping in, new regime. I mean, how's that going to go? But we'll find out. So, but yeah, with that is all the time that we have for today. I thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back again tomorrow, same time, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And until then, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn it.